Hi, I'm Greg. I'm the lead singer for Lipstick.
I'm Steve. I'm the bassist.
I'm irrelevant.
This is Steve's dad. He's the lead dad of Lipstick. We just got done watching the ending to Final Fantasy 15. So, spoilers.
15th of Final Fantasy games. Actually, no, it's probably like Final Fantasy, 23?
I think there's over 100 Final Fantasy games, including, like, all the spin-offs and stuff.
What?
Yeah, there's, like, at least 8 mobile Final Fantasy games.
Oh.
So, I think we should begin with explaining our level of Final Fantasy fandom. I've played most of the numbered entries in the series, played Tactics and a few other spin-offs.
I played 6, and I'm going to call it 6 until I got an airship, and then I didn't know what to do anymore, and just stopped playing.
I've watched my son-in-law play 1, 2, and 3.
I'll edit this.
Spoiler alert, Hajime Tabata directed this, and if you notice, like, when he did Crisis Core, everyone died at the end. And when he did Type 0, everyone died at the end. Spoiler alert, everyone dies at the end. What a surprise that the guy who consistently has everyone die at the end has an ending where everyone dies at the end. What a shocker.
But King McKingface, he came back to life again, I think, so that he could kill his son, so that his son could go to the afterlife and kill Steven Tyler with his friends. His girlfriend died killing Steven Tyler, but then they got reunited, I guess. I'm pretty sure that the wedding scene at the end was basically just tacked on because they got to the end and were like, everybody's dead, and they're hanging out in the afterlife and having a good time, except for the girlfriend and Steven Tyler. They're extra dead. And somebody just decided, we need, like, a happy ending, though, so, like, show them married.
What I kind of got from it is that there's, it's meant to have an ambiguous ending, but from what I've heard from spoilers, the main villain, whose name is Arden, I guess is some sort of, like, time-traveling jerk-face who keeps messing around with time, so they might have perma-erased him from history in that vortexy void thing at the end. And so that might have created an alternate timeline where everyone's alive and okay, or the ending is them in the afterlife, and it's like, oh, look, we're in this purgatory kind of place, and there's nobody around.
The ambiguous good ending is bad time travel logic.
Right.
And this is coming from, like, a group of people who watch Dragon Ball Z on the regs.
Right.
And don't question that time travel logic much. That's bad time travel logic.
Well, so, to me, the most impressive thing of the game is the hair.
Yeah, that hair. The hair animation, like, Pixar fixed that years ago. And in the pre-rendered scenes, the hair animation is fine, but...
Well, there's only so much you can do for in-game. There's... with just the way you can move graphics around. There's...
Yeah...
Gotta cut them a little bit of slack.
But you got to say that all of the characters had very impressive hair.
The characters did have great hair.
Maybe not Greg impressive hair, but
Right.
definitely better than...
So few of us did.
I mean, that's since Final Fantasy VII. That's been the standard, is everybody's got a huge, spiky, card captor, anime protagonist hair. The one dude definitely sounded like Seto Kaiba. Eric, did you voice act that guy, Eric Stewart?
Eric's not watching this video.
Oh.
Eric will not watch this video. Eric will be the one thumbs down of this video. Don't name drop me, guys. Stop trying to be cool. Overall, I actually like the ending, and it makes me want to play the game because I feel like there is emotional payoff. It feels like. You know, I've read bits of spoilers and kind of know the general outline of the plot and the way things are going to go. I guess Noctis starts off young and then transforms. He becomes older throughout the course of the game. And
as you said earlier, he starts as a boy band and ends as a man band.
Ends as a man band.
And then goes back to being a boy band in the credits again.
You can tell he's got an interesting... It looks like he's got a good character arc, which is, I think, something that was kind of lacking from the last couple Final Fantasies. Because when I play a Final Fantasy game, I want to see my character grow and develop as a person. And I think that's the most interesting facet of the series. So it's nice to see an ending that I feel brings that back to the franchise.
Mm.
So, to me, one of the things as somebody who has not done any of the later things of Final Fantasy that was a little bit confusing is the mechanisms of the fight scenes. Because it just seemed completely chaotic and incomprehensible.
Well, this one is, action-based. It's not turn-based. So that is one aspect where you're free-roaming, controlling your characters. From 7 onwards, they started to incorporate a lot of cutscenes into combat. So when you select a summon, instead of just the summon appearing in just like a quick flash, it has this big, long animation sequence. What they did with the Kingdom Hearts games is had different cutscenes for each battle and like a certain counter cutscene. So when you press circle at the right time, it has a little mini cutscene to make the fight more interesting and cinematic.
Press circle to win the game.
All right. Spoiler alert, the final battle.
The final action is a quick time event.
Right. In the same way that the Cloud versus Sephiroth final battle was, you have one option, it is your best limit break, and you can't even select item or defend. It's like, hit circle, final boss is dead. Pretty much ends the same way, which I think was probably an intentional throwback to 7. Like, hey, it worked for the most successful game in our franchise, let's bring that back.
I guess killing the protagonist's girlfriend also works for that one, so...
Right. I mean, they're trying to recapture, I think, the magic with 7, where 7 was a big game for the PlayStation 1, helped raise the bar for the genre, had very iconic moments and a very emotional story. So I think they're trying to do that, where they're trying to...
Spawn another generation of people saying, why didn't they just use a Phoenix Down on Luna?
Pretty much.
That's the magic item that brings back your characters when they're dead.
I see. Yeah, since we missed the whole what happened to Luna part and just watched the end of the show, we have no idea what happened to Luna.
I'm pretty
She's
sure
dead.
Pretty sure Arden killed her, since he's like, yeah, man, you
I
watched your
killed
girl
your
die.
girlfriend. Yeah.
They don't call Steven Tyler a lady killer for nothing.
General thoughts, do you think the game looks good?
When you say looks good...
Like, does it look like a good experience? How do you think it would stack up compared to other Final Fantasy in the series? Where do you think it's going to rank in the canon based on the little bits that you've seen?
The series peaked at Mario RPG. It might be worth playing, but it's never going to top that.
I have no
Yeah,
idea. I mean, it looks a lot more realistic than 3 did, which is 6.
I don't know, those are some pretty good sprites.
What do you think?
Ultimately, I think it's going to be a middle-of-the-road Final Fantasy. I think because of the battle system being so drastically different, a lot of people aren't going to like it for that reason. From what I've heard reviews about the whole open-world aspect, it's not as open-world as a lot of other open-world games, so I think open-world gamers aren't going to like it as much because it's a little bit more linear and contained. I think the main character, based on the bits of information that I've gotten, might actually be the best protagonist in the series.
He didn't seem whiny, actually, which is a pretty big step up for basically all of the voice-acted Final Fantasy games. So it took the good elements of 7 and removed the bad elements of 10. Yeah, I'm pretty sure your character gets killed by Kingy McKingface at the end.
From what I've heard about Noctis is that he's a more three-dimensional character, where he can be a little bit selfish, but not so much that he's like an obvious brat. He's just a realistic person, like, oh man, there's a cute girl, I guess I'll talk to her.
You didn't watch The Clueless Gamer, so you have the least context. Describe the ending of the game.
The hero and his 4 friends are trying to get to the big bad boss, who's this time-traveling magician character who's usurped the throne. So the 4 of them fight flaming spritey thing on the street and successfully defeat him with some kind of a summoning of ice. And then they go to this like abandoned hotel and go up in the elevator to the top floor, and when they get into the throne room, the king kills everybody except the protagonist Noctis, who then has to go fight the king, and they have this long incomprehensible fight scene of drinking potions to keep from dying and going blue and red and all sorts of weird things happening, and he finally kills the bad guy while all the old kings witness from around him.
Witness me.
Yes, but then
Shiny and chrome.
he's only dead, sort of partly dead. Not quite dead yet. So
All that the only thing he can do is go through his pockets, look for loose change.
I'm not dead yet.
So then the protagonist sits on the throne, and all the old kings come and are subsumed into him, and the last old king is his father, who he says, trust me to, and his father kills him so he can go to the afterlife, and then you get the big one-button finish where you can't really lose. Somehow the girl ends up getting involved and kissing the bad guy on the hand, and that makes him weaker, so that all the kings come out of the guy's ring and chop the bad guy up into little pieces, and he's gone forever. And then we're not quite sure what happens after that because, everybody's dead, maybe.
So my interpretation of things is, we pick up at the sub-boss fight of Ifrit, Irfit, however you pronounce it, Freet in the street, Irfit in his seat. And they fight him, they go into this building, ride an elevator up. Conveniently, the elevator also only has one button, so they know which floor to go to. They get to the throne room, meet this Steven Tyler-looking bad guy who gets referred to as Jester, so presumably he had a role in the court prior to usurping the throne. All the companions die. There's some people hanging from the ceiling in chains, and they disappear for reasons not fully explained. He goes out into the street, fights Steven Tyler, Devil May Cry style, eventually beats him after 2 or 3 rounds, and some spamming of potions, and summoning lightning wizard Gandalf, who's 80 feet tall, and turns the entire street into magma. because it's Final Fantasy and you can't have summons that don't blow up the entire planet. And then he goes back to the throne room, sits down, summons all of the ancient kings who fly into his ring, and then gets run through by his father, who looks more solid now, so maybe he came back to life, who knows. Then he goes to this infinite void where his friends happen to be there as well, and that's pretty sweet. And they summon the kings, and he's doing like a key battle with Steven Tyler. Luna, the love interest, headbutts his arm out of the way enough to distract him, which lets everyone beat him, I think. It transports Noctis and the rest of NSYNC to a campfire where Noctis is... like, he takes... 2.5 minutes to get out that he's just really excited that his friends are there with him. He's like, it's been so long. He's kind of whiny then. I don't know if I can say this. Yeah, just say it. You're happy your friends are there. It's easy. Just if you like somebody and you're hanging out with them and you're friends, just say, hey, we're friends. It's nice to be together.
It's nice to be together.
Aww. Brought to you by Coleman.
That is true. There are Coleman chairs.
Coleman camp chairs all over the place. And then it shows a sort of retrospective of presumably a bunch of different scenes that you'd visited throughout the game, but there's nobody there because apparently when we say everyone is dead, we mean everyone is dead.
Except the dog.
Except for the dog. There was a dog, actually. The dog was fine.
No idea what the dog was about. Looked like he had a wristwatch on.
I'm actually going to explain that in my turn.
So somebody update the doesthedogdie.com entry on Final Fantasy 15. The dog is fine.
Is this like a Bechdel test for animals?
It doesn't pass the Bechdel test. There's only one woman. Yeah, and then it cuts to like some kind of wedding scene where he's hanging out with the love interest again in a restored throne room. Really fancy confetti is falling from the sky. It looks like basically floaty shards of glass.
Well, it's rose petals, and then when they fall down, they turn into glass and flash. And shatter. Yeah.
That sounds impractical.
Yes, it does sound. But hey, it's a fantasy.
All right. And then one final scene of their camp chairs with their tent and cooler magically missing. Apparently they got robbed by bears. That's my canonical. That's my headcanon of how it ends. Is main characters all murdered by bears.
For those of you wanting the less comedic version that clicked here for the spoilers, here is my interpretation of things.
Legit spoilers.
Legit spoilers. The playthrough we watched started with a boss battle where the main characters, the four main dudes, go and confront Arden in front of the palace that Noctis and his friends are trying to get to. I don't know all the proper nouns, so Arden summons Ifrit, or however you want to pronounce it, and they get into a pretty cool boss battle with Ifrit. During the boss battle, it looks like Bahamut is summoned, and there is a bit of eye contact between Noctis and Bahamut, who I believe in the game the summons are all associated with other human characters. And there is a human female like Dragoon Knight, whose name I don't recall, but I guess she is tied with Bahamut somehow. And so when their eyes gaze, I believe it's something relating to those characters' long history. At the end of the boss battle with Ifrit, Shiva is summoned, and she's associated with another character whose name I don't know, but she appears as that character first and then turns into Shiva, and then destroys Ifrit with a kiss, which is kind of cool for longtime fans of the series because Shiva being the ice goddess and Ifrit being the fire demon, and those two characters just intersecting in that way. Just for longtime fans, it's just kind of an interesting sort of artistic thing. Then the gang makes their way into the palace, and in the throne room, Arden, the time-traveling villain dude, Steven Tyler. So in the throne room, you have corpses hanging from chains. I believe one of them looks like it's probably Luna, Noctis' fiancée, love interest, who was probably killed by Arden earlier in the game. Probably the king and a few other characters hanging from chains, and then Arden sitting on the throne like a jerk bag.
You can tell he's evil because of the way he's lounging.
Noctis demands, get off my throne. And that's actually one thing I want to comment on quick, the voice acting. Young Noctis and older Noctis are played by the same guy, but he does a really good job of adding like the gravel to his voice and making him seem like he's hardened and experienced things. I thought the guy who played Noctis did a really good job. Then Arden casts some kind of spell on the rest of the party, so then it's a one-on-one fight between Noctis and Arden. Noctis ultimately defeats Arden. Some monsters appear in front of the palace, and his friends go to fight them alone. With the interpretation of the end, it is implied they die during that battle with those monsters in front of the palace, and they die off screen. Noctis inside the throne room summons the kings of past, and they all appear magically and start stabbing him, and then whatever magic ring he has brings him into the void, where he battles Arden alongside all his friends and the kings past and Luna. They're all there, and they team up to defeat Arden with a final attack, erase him from history. From what I hear about the game, I'm guessing he's doing something with time travel and looping things and ruining history, and so him being perma-erased. The mid-credit scene are the four main characters around a campfire. A lot of people interpret this ending as sort of an afterlife purgatory thing. Noctis, I think, is actually not happy to see his friends in the afterlife, but sad that they died. Because his dialogue is, I had made my peace, but to see you guys here, he says, it's too much to bear. Because I think he is upset that they had to die too. He was prepared to die and sacrifice himself, but not prepared to see his friends die. So he is sad that they didn't get to live their long and fulfilled lives. And so that's sort of a bittersweet ending where they're in this purgatory, they can't really communicate with anyone else, and they're just stuck around a campfire just for eternity. And so that's kind of a sad, bittersweet ending. But then the end credit scene, everything has disappeared from the earth, except for dogs, which I believe dogs are tied to summons also, from what I hear from spoilers I've read. So there's some sort of gateway between the worlds. I don't know exactly how that works because, haven't played the game yet. Want to. But the ending shows Noctis's and Luna's wedding. No one else is around except the two of them. But the ending shows them sort of like leaning their heads on each other, and that then turns into the logo for Final Fantasy XV. And so the ending is left ambiguous as to whether this is another afterlife purgatory thing where the two souls are reunited, or if defeating Arden broke some kind of time loop and there is now a happy timeline where everyone's alive and everything's great. In which case, perhaps the bittersweet ending with everyone there means they aren't dead either. I think it's meant to your interpretation, but Tabata did it, so they're definitely all dead. Yeah, that's the spoilery actually explained in the ending version.
So the picture or the vision of the dog, he was lying down in the street with nobody else around. They'd gone through all of these locales, and this is the last locale, and he gets up and sort of walks away from the camera, and I swear he was wearing a wristwatch. We can only see that for a second. There was something on his leg.
That might be something to do with the game and the story, because I hear dogs are somehow tied to another world, and I hear they're almost an antagonistic force in the game. So there's something somehow tied to the antagonist.
It was probably just a mistake in filming, kind of like when Charlton Heston was wearing a watch in Ten Commandments. Right. It's just the actor playing the dog forgot to take his watch off, and by the time they got to that stage of editing, they're like,
was it Warwick
Fido, Davis? Come on! No, it was probably, what's his name? Gollum.
Andy Serkis.
Yeah, Andy Serkis in a mocap suit.
He did the mocap for everyone in this game.
Give that man an Emmy.
He does films. It'd be an Oscar.
Give him an Emmy anyway. Give him every award. He needs a Grammy too. Tonys, throw him some Tonys.
Some kind of wrap-up. Overall thoughts. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Did it look good?
Well, given that not only have I not seen any of the Final Fantasy games,
right,
making me completely unqualified to answer that question,
right,
I don't actually play role-playing games or video games at all. So, did it look like anime or manga that I might be interested in watching once? Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the two criteria I tend to judge Final Fantasy games on specifically are the early games I judged based on the criteria of you only get one video game this weekend, Steve. It has to last all weekend. In which case, it was apparently 60 hours long, bare minimum, so thumbs up for that. The other criteria is Final Fantasy X was awful because it was walk down a hall, watch a cutscene, walk down a hall, watch a cutscene. And I can't really speak to that because I have no idea how much... We basically didn't watch any gameplay. We just watched the cutscenes at the end.
But you've seen, the Clueless gamer, you've seen the open world gameplay stuff.
Oh, that's true. So, for reasons that Conan O'Brien didn't understand it, I guess looks better than 10. So, 2 thumbs up then.
2 thumbs up. I think it's a good direction for the series. I know a lot of people didn't like the linearity of 13. I was fine with it. I didn't like 12 at all. I thought it had such an open world, but the characters and story were so bland where I didn't care how open the world was. This is boring. Don't want to walk around this boring desert. Very Star Wars. Just let's walk around the desert all day.
Sand. It's coarse and gritty and gets in everything. I hate fantasy. It's coarse and gritty and gets in everything.
I actually didn't think 10 was as linear. I thought the towns had decent exploration and stuff you could do in, but I do understand the lack of a world map and airship was off-putting. But I think 15's a good direction for the series because it's bringing emotion and heart back into the series, and that was always the best part, was the stories and the characters and feeling something where you look back on it and reflect on it and it touches your soul in some way. And 12 was just it was bland and didn't have any of that. 13, I think, had a decent story, but the gameplay, I think, turned off a lot of people. I think this is a better balance in the right direction. I think the characters in 13, from what I've played of 13 and what I've seen of the characters in this, I think the characters in 13 are stronger, but I think Noctis as a main character and the overall plot is stronger in 15. So I think 13 has a better overall cast, like a cast of like 7 or 8 characters that are better, versus Noctis and his friends. His friends aren't as strong of characters, but Noctis himself, I think, is better than the cast of 13. And I think he probably has a pretty good arc, and I'm looking forward to checking it out.
See, the problem that I see with that is that the original Final Fantasy 1, for example, was a little, sprite, go rescue the princess!
Right.
I will go rescue the princess.
And you did that...
Fight the bad guy! Fight the bad guy.
But you did that immediately. As soon as you rescued the princess, like, okay, now the game starts. That was like the opening, hour of the game.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, the basic concept of, do this, okay, I'll do this, I'll do this. And now we're doing, cinematic fights with stuff flying out of the atmosphere to the, impaling people.
But as far back as 2 is when they brought in, characters with names and characters getting killed off throughout the story and different emotional interactions between the characters and betrayals. Like, that was 2, on the Nintendo, the one that didn't get ported here. That one had story. Final Fantasy 2 that came to America, aka 4, opens with the main character question the morality of his military as he goes and commits genocide and atrocities.
Yeah, I think you're freighting it with a level of severity that is somewhat different than something like this, which is obviously much more cinematic and dramatic. So
that's always been Square's thing, though. Is they've always tried to,
and they've tried to up the bar,
step it up in every game. Like I remember, Final Fantasy VIII, there was much hullabaloo about look at these beautiful cutscenes and this epic love story,
and how it integrates into gameplay seamlessly.
Seamlessly.
I mean, there were warts. People are going to look
back.
It was
a long time ago.
Right. People are going to look back on this one in 5 or 10 years and be like, "Man, there were some warts on Final Fantasy 15."
Oh, yeah. I think
specifically
the
hair.
I think the open world is not going to hold up as well. I think it's going to be considered a step forward, but I don't think it's going to hold up as well. That's sort of just my guess from things. All right, well, I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to check out other videos from us, we happen to be in a band. And if you grew up in the 90s, you probably played Final Fantasy, and you probably also watched Dragon Ball Z. So you should check us...
We'll probably put a link right about there.
Yeah, you should check out us doing live-action Dragon Ball Z in that video link, that box right there. Go watch it. It's pretty cool.
Or you could go to Dr. Bob's office and watch gear demos.
Yeah!
All right.
You can edit out all that stuff about Final Fantasy 1.